On a warm and breezy April afternoon, the heart of a small American town was alive with anticipation. The largest community center, a hub for local gatherings and events, was overflowing with energy. Families, friends, and neighbors had all gathered, filling every seat and lining the walls. Today was special, a day when the town's spirit of togetherness shone brightly. President Donald Trump was visiting, and the event was dedicated to celebrating individuals with disabilities and their families, a chance to share stories of resilience, dreams, and even the struggles often left unspoken. Amid the bustling crowd, standing close to her mother, was Emily, a 10-year-old girl who had been blind since birth. She stood quietly, her small hands gripping her white cane, a lifeline she had relied on every day of her life. Her expression revealed a mix of nervousness and anticipation, a blend of emotions she was too young to fully understand but old enough to feel deeply. Emily had always been a brave and curious child. She didn't let her blindness define her. She listened intently to the sounds of the world, running her fingers across objects to imagine their shapes and textures. She had taught herself to recognize people by their voices, footsteps, or even their scent. But despite her courage, there was a part of her, a small, fragile part, that felt the ache of being different. As she stood there, surrounded by people chatting and laughing, Emily couldn't help but wonder about all the things she couldn't see. She had heard about the beauty of the world, the way the sun painted the sky in shades of gold at dusk, the vibrant colors of spring flowers, or the simple sight of her mother's loving face. They can all see the world, Emily thought to herself, but I can't. I don't know what light looks like, or how people smile when they're happy. I can't even picture what God looks like. And everyone always talks about him so much. It wasn't bitterness that filled her, but a deep yearning, a longing to understand the world in the way others did. This longing often led to questions she didn't have answers to, questions that lingered in her heart, growing heavier with time. Today, however, was different. Today, Emily carried a fragile but undeniable hope. She had heard so much about President Trump, how he was a man of conviction, a leader who spoke from the heart and didn't shy away from challenges. She had heard people describe him as strong and compassionate, someone who listened when it truly mattered. Maybe, just maybe, he could give her the answer she had been searching for. As the minutes passed, the room buzzed with excitement. Conversations grew louder, and then, suddenly, there was a hush. The sound of footsteps echoed on the stage, followed by an eruption of cheers and applause. President Trump had arrived. Though Emily couldn't see him, she felt the electricity in the air. The crowd's enthusiasm vibrated through the floor beneath her feet, and the cheers rang so loud they seemed to shake the walls. She tightened her grip on her mother's hand, her knuckles turning white as she fought to steady herself. This is it, she thought. Her chest tightened as her emotions swirled. Hope, fear, curiosity, all colliding at once. The president began to speak, his voice calm but commanding. He talked about the strength of the human spirit, the importance of unity, and the remarkable resilience of those who faced life's challenges head-on. Emily listened intently, her heart racing. Every word seemed to land directly on her small shoulders, as if he were speaking to her alone. The moment of truth was drawing closer, and Emily felt a surge of courage she had never known before. She didn't just want to listen, she wanted to be heard. With trembling fingers, she reached for her mother's arm. "Mama," she whispered, "can I ask him something? Do you think he'll listen to me?" Her mother knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from Emily's face. "Of course, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft yet steady. "Your question is important, and I think he'll understand that, too." As the president invited questions from the audience, Emily's mother guided her hand into the air. The room seemed to pause as a staff member noticed and quickly brought her a microphone. The cane in her hand felt heavier than ever as she held the mic. Her heart pounded, but she steadied herself, breathing deeply. She wasn't just a little girl anymore. In this moment, she felt like someone with a voice that mattered. The president, noticing her small frame and the determination etched into her expression, gestured for the room to quiet down. "Go ahead, young lady," he said warmly. "I'm listening." Emily swallowed hard, then spoke in a voice that was soft but carried the weight of her heart. "Mr. President, I've never seen the light. I don't know what the world looks like, or what the people around me look like, and I don't know what God looks like either. Is it because I'm different that I can't see him?" The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Emily, but she couldn't see them. Her question hung in the air, fragile but powerful. President Trump's expression softened as he stepped down from the stage and walked toward her. Every step he took seemed to carry the weight of the room's collective emotion. When he reached her, he knelt so they were eye level. Taking her small hands in his, he said gently, "Emily, that's a beautiful question, and I'm going to answer it the best I can." Emily sat close to her mother, her small hand gripping tightly onto her white cane, the familiar companion that had been by her side for as long as she could remember. She leaned slightly against her mother, listening quietly to the voices that filled the room. Around her, inspiring stories echoed, words of faith, resilience, and love for life. Laughter rippled through the crowd as people shared moments of joy, mingled with more serious reflections about overcoming struggles. To Emily, each word painted a picture she could only imagine, but one she could never see. The sounds of joy and encouragement should have warmed her heart, but instead, they stirred something else, a sadness she didn't fully understand. Her thoughts drifted as the speakers on stage began to talk about God, describing him in vivid detail. They spoke of his beauty, his power, and his endless love. They talked about his eyes, kind and watchful, and his face, gentle and full of grace. For Emily, these descriptions were like hearing about colors she could never see or landscapes she could never touch. The more they spoke, the more Emily felt a deep, unfamiliar ache in her chest. She couldn't imagine what God looked like, no matter how hard she tried. The words others used to describe him felt distant, as if they belonged to a world she could never truly be a part of. She felt, in that moment, like she was standing on the outside, peering in at something beautiful but unreachable. Emily shifted in her seat, her grip tightening around her cane. After a long pause, she turned her face toward her mother and whispered, her voice barely audible, "Mom, I can't see God. I don't know what he looks like. Is it because I'm blind that I'm not like everyone else?" Her words hung in the air, fragile yet heavy, cutting through the warmth of the room. Her mother turned to her immediately, her face softening with love and understanding. She gently placed her arms around Emily, pulling her close as though shielding her from the weight of her own question. "Oh, my sweet girl," her mother said, her voice as gentle as the first breeze of spring. "Know my love. It's not because you're blind. You're not different. You're special. God is with you. Always. He lives in your heart, in every beat of your life, even though you can't see him with your eyes. He loves you just as much as he loves everyone else in this world." Emily listened, leaning into her mother's embrace. Her mother's words were warm and comforting, like a soft blanket on a cold night. Yet, deep inside, Emily couldn't completely shake the sadness. Her mother's reassurance quieted her mind, but it didn't entirely ease her heart. As the room around her buzzed with conversation and laughter, Emily's thoughts wandered. She wondered to herself, how can I know God if I can't see him? Does he really hear me when I pray? Does he see me the same way he sees everyone else? She tried to picture God in her mind, but all she saw was darkness. It wasn't the kind of darkness that frightened her. It was the kind she lived with every day. But this darkness felt heavier, as though it was keeping her from finding something she desperately wanted to understand. Emily shifted again, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the smooth handle of her cane. She thought about the stories she'd heard about God's love and how he was always watching over everyone. She wanted to believe it, but it felt so far away, like trying to reach for the stars when you're standing on the ground. Her mother, sensing her daughter's lingering unease, gently squeezed her shoulder. "Emily," she said softly, "you don't have to see God to know him. You can feel him in the love around you, in the way I hold you, in the laughter of your friends, and even in the kindness of strangers. God isn't someone you see. He's someone you feel with your heart." Emily nodded slowly, but the questions in her mind didn't disappear. She wanted to believe her mother's words, and deep down, a part of her did. But another part of her, small and quiet but persistent, still longed for something more. "If God is with me," she thought, "why can't I feel him the way everyone else seems to? Why do I feel like something is missing?" Despite the love that surrounded her, Emily's heart carried a small, unfilled space, a silent yearning to understand God in a way that felt real to her. She didn't want to just hear about him or imagine what he might be like. She wanted to know, without a doubt, that he saw her as clearly as he saw everyone else. And as she sat there, surrounded by laughter and stories of hope, she couldn't help but wonder if she would ever find the answers she was searching for. The gathering unfolded in a warm and welcoming atmosphere, filled with a sense of community and hope. People of all ages had come together to share stories, laughter, and even their struggles. When President Donald Trump stepped onto the stage, his presence immediately commanded attention. His confidence and approachable demeanor were evident as he smiled and waved at the crowd, taking a moment to acknowledge the families present. After a brief introduction, he began to speak about unity and the strength found in diversity. His words were laced with encouragement, patriotism, and the importance of compassion in building a better world. As his speech continued, the audience listened intently, many nodding in agreement. He spoke about the resilience of individuals with disabilities, their courage, and their ability to inspire those around them. When he invited questions from the audience, the room seemed to hum with quiet anticipation. For a few moments, no one moved. Then, near the middle of the crowd, a small hand hesitantly rose. It belonged to Emily, a 10-year-old girl who had been blind since birth. Emily sat next to her mother, gripping her white cane with both hands. Her mother gently squeezed her shoulder, silently encouraging her. Despite the nerves swirling inside her, Emily felt an overwhelming need to speak. A staff member quickly brought her a microphone. All eyes turned to the little girl as President Trump gestured for the room to quiet down, his own focus entirely on her. Emily's voice, soft but steady, broke the silence. "Mr. President, I've never seen the light. I don't know what the world or the people around me look like. And I don't know what God looks like either. Is it because I'm different that God doesn't want me to see him?" Her words seemed to freeze the room in place. The murmur of conversations and the rustling of seats came to an abrupt halt. A profound silence fell over the crowd, broken only by a few muffled gasps. Many people bowed their heads, moved by the vulnerability in Emily's voice. President Trump's expression softened. Slowly, he stepped down from the stage, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the stillness. The crowd parted as he made his way toward Emily, his gaze fixed on her small frame. When he reached her, he knelt down so they were at eye level, taking her hands gently in his. His voice, typically commanding, was now warm and filled with empathy. "Emily," he began, "you're not different, you're special. And that's what makes you so precious." Emily's hands trembled slightly in his, but she listened intently. "You don't need to see with your eyes to find God," Trump continued. "God isn't in a form we can see. He lives in the love, faith, and goodness that you can feel in your heart. That's where he is, Emily, and that's where you'll find him." Emily tilted her head slightly, absorbing his words. Trump smiled and continued, his tone full of gentle reassurance. "But if God did have a form," he said, "he would be more beautiful than anything you could ever imagine. He would have hair that glows like the sun's rays, kind eyes that shine like stars in the night sky, and a face full of compassion, like a father reaching out to embrace his child. He would wear a pure white robe, a symbol of his holiness and the unconditional love he has for all of us." The room remained silent as Emily seemed to bow her head, trying to picture the image he had painted for her. Her hands relaxed slightly in his, and for a moment, she seemed lost in thought. Before she could say anything more, Trump gently squeezed her hands and spoke again, his tone steady and heartfelt. "But Emily, you don't need to see God with your eyes. You can feel him in your heart. When your mother holds you close, that's God. When you hear kind words, gentle laughter, or someone's heartfelt prayer, that's God too. He is present in every good thing you feel, not in a physical form, but in the love and faith that surround you every day." Emily's lip quivered, and she bit down on it to keep from crying, but her emotions were too strong to contain. Finally, she whispered, her voice barely audible, "But I feel less fortunate than others. They can see the world, but I can't." Trump leaned in slightly, his eyes full of encouragement. "Emily," he said, "do you know something? People who can't see with their eyes often have the gift of seeing with their hearts in ways others never could. God gave you a special ability to feel love, kindness, and joy more deeply than anyone else could understand. Never think of yourself as less than anyone else. You're strong, and you can do anything you set your heart to, as long as you keep faith in it." Emily tilted her face upward, as if searching for the sound of his voice. Though her eyes would never see light, her expression glowed with a newfound hope. The room, which had remained silent throughout the exchange, suddenly erupted into applause. Many in the crowd wiped away tears, their hearts touched by the sincerity of the moment. But Emily wasn't thinking about the applause or the people around her. She was thinking about what she had just heard and how, for the first time, she didn't feel so different anymore. President Trump's words settled into Emily's heart like a gentle, golden light, filling the small spaces that had once felt empty. Each word seemed to weave itself into her soul, pushing away the shadows of doubt and sadness she had carried for so long. For the first time, Emily felt something she had never fully experienced before: hope. It wasn't a fleeting moment of joy, but a steady warmth, as if someone had opened a door in her heart, letting the light pour in. As she sat there, still clutching her white cane, Emily began to reflect. Memories she had tucked away began to surface, one by one, like stars appearing in a night sky. She thought of her mother's hugs, the way her arms wrapped tightly around her, radiating a love so profound that Emily could feel it in every fiber of her being. She remembered her friend's laughter, the joyful sound filling the air like a song meant just for her. And she thought about the kind words from neighbors and strangers alike, voices that had reached out to her on days when she needed them most. Her thoughts drifted to the morning spin in church. Standing beside her mother, Emily could almost hear the hymns again, the melodies rising and falling, carrying with them a sense of peace that wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She had never seen the stained glass windows that everyone else admired, but she could feel the sunlight streaming through them, dancing on her skin. In those moments, she now realized she had been seeing God all along, not with her eyes, but with her heart. The applause thundered through the room as the gathering came to an end, the sound vibrating in the floor beneath her feet. But for Emily, the applause was a distant echo. What stayed with her wasn't the noise of the crowd or the attention directed her way. It was the quiet transformation within her, a miraculous shift that no one else could see but that she could feel so clearly. The sadness that had once weighed on her, that feeling of being different and disconnected, was gone. In its place was something stronger, brighter, a sense of faith that seemed to anchor her in a way she had never known. Emily smiled, her lips curving into a radiant expression that lit up her entire face. It was the kind of smile that wasn't just about happiness, but about knowing something profound and unshakable. She now understood that she was never alone. God was with her, not in the ways others had described, not through visions of glowing hair or kind eyes, but through the love she felt in every embrace, every laugh, and every kind word. He was present in the goodness that surrounded her, in the moments of connection that had shaped her world. As she sat there, her mother placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You're smiling so beautifully, sweetheart," her mother whispered, her voice tinged with emotion. Emily turned her face toward her mother, her sightless eyes now filled with something new, peace. "I think I understand now, Mama," she said softly. "God's been with me all along. I just didn't know how to see him before." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy. She kissed Emily's forehead, holding her daughter close. "That's right, my love," she whispered. "You've always seen him, just in a way that's all your own." The crowd began to disperse, but Emily stayed seated for a moment longer, soaking in everything she had felt and heard. She didn't need to rush. For the first time, there was no urgency to find answers or to feel what others felt. She understood now that her journey was hers alone, and in that realization, she found freedom. Though she couldn't see the smiles of the people around her, Emily could sense their kindness. She felt it in the way some paused to gently touch her shoulder or offer a word of encouragement. She felt it in the warm embrace of the moment, a moment that had shifted something not just within her, but within everyone present. The transformation in Emily's heart didn't end with her own understanding. It began to ripple outward, reaching those who had witnessed her courage and faith. Her story would go on to inspire others, reminding them that the greatest miracles aren't always seen with the eyes, but felt deeply with the heart. The morning after the gathering, as sunlight poured through the small kitchen window, Emily's mother found an unexpected package waiting on their porch. The simple brown box bore the official seal of the White House, and her hands trembled slightly as she brought it inside. Placing it gently on the table, she called Emily over. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice a mix of curiosity and excitement. "This is for you." Emily, guided by the familiar tap of her white cane, approached the table. She reached out cautiously, her small fingers brushing against the edges of the box. Her mother helped her carefully peel back the tape, and together they opened it to reveal its contents. Inside was a beautifully bound Braille book, its cover smooth beneath Emily's fingers. The title, though she couldn't see it, was embossed in raised letters, "Stories of Faith and Love from the Bible." Next to the book was a crisp white envelope, its surface marked with elegant handwriting. Emily's mother opened the envelope and pulled out a handwritten note, her breath catching as she read the salutation aloud. "Dear Emily," she began, her voice already thick with emotion. As she continued to read, each word seemed to carry the weight of genuine care and thoughtfulness. "You don't need eyes to see the world, for your heart has already seen wonders far greater than light itself. Your heart is the lamp that illuminates all love and faith. You were not created to be like anyone else, but to be a light in this world. Never forget that you have the strength to do extraordinary things. Sincerely, Donald Trump. By the time she reached the final words, tears were streaming down her face. She paused, unable to speak for a moment, overwhelmed by the depth of the message. Emily stood silently, her head tilted slightly toward her mother, as if listening to every unspoken emotion in her voice. Though she couldn't see the note, she felt its weight in her heart. "What does it say?" "Mama?" she asked softly, her hands resting on the unopened book in front of her. Her mother cleared her throat, wiped her eyes, and read the note again, this time more steadily. As the words filled the room, Emily felt their warmth, like a gentle hug wrapping around her. When her mother finished, Emily's small hands moved to the Braille book. She traced its surface slowly, almost reverently, her fingers gliding over the textured cover. A radiant smile spread across her face, a smile so pure and full of gratitude that it lit up the room. "It's like he sent me a treasure," Emily said quietly. "I can feel how much he cares. I can feel it in the words." Her mother nodded, unable to respond with anything more than a soft, tearful smile. She watched as Emily opened the book, her fingers moving over the first page of Braille, her concentration unbroken. It was as though Emily was already connecting to the stories inside, drawing strength and inspiration from the gift. Word of the president's gesture spread quickly, first within their small town and soon across the country. The story of Emily and the handwritten letter captured the hearts of millions. For those living with disabilities, it became a beacon of hope, a reminder that their worth wasn't defined by what they couldn't do, but by the immense power of their faith and love. For others, Emily's story transcended any one experience. It served as a profound message that true beauty and connection aren't found in what we see, but in how we perceive and feel the world with our hearts. Back in her little home, Emily continued to explore the Braille book, her fingers discovering passages filled with faith and wisdom. She didn't need to see the pages to know their power. She felt it with every word. And though the book was only a small object, it represented something far greater. It was a symbol of belief, a testament to the extraordinary strength within her. Her mother, sitting quietly nearby, watched as Emily's face lit up with every new discovery. She didn't interrupt. She simply let her daughter's joy fill the room, knowing that this moment was the beginning of something even more remarkable. Emily's story reminds us of a profound and timeless truth. The greatest wonders in life are not those we see with our eyes, but those we feel deeply with our hearts. Her courage, faith, and resilience stand as a shining testament to the enduring power of love, the boundless strength of hope, and the unwavering belief in something far greater than ourselves. Imagine, for a moment, the bravery it took for Emily, a young girl, blind from birth, to speak her heart in a room full of strangers. She asked the questions we all grapple with at some point in our lives. Why am I different? Am I enough? Does God truly see me? Yet, instead of letting her questions weigh her down, Emily embraced the answers that came her way with grace and openness. Her story is not just about finding answers, but about discovering light in places where others might see only darkness. As you reflect on Emily's journey, let it serve as a gentle reminder that life's true beauty often lies beneath the surface, in the moments we experience through kindness, compassion, and connection. Think about the times you felt the warmth of a loved one's hug, the reassurance in a friend's voice, or the joy and laughter shared with others. These are the moments that make life extraordinary, not because they can be seen, but because they can be felt in the depths of our hearts. No matter where you are in your journey, know this: you are not defined by what you lack, but by the gifts you bring to the world. Your heart, like Emily's, holds the power to touch lives, to be a source of light, and to create ripples of hope that reach far beyond what you might ever imagine. Even in the quietest moments, your presence and your love can make a difference. So, may your heart always guide you, even when the path is unclear. May your faith sustain you, even in the face of uncertainty. And may your journey be one of light and love, bringing hope and inspiration to all who walk beside you. With warm blessings and belief in your strength, a friend who believes in you.